Today's CPAC is the biggest and best we've ever seen. Folks, we are making a difference.
Well, it's that time of year again, CPAC time. The leaders of the conservative movement have long met in the Washington area each year for an event called CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference.
It's an amazing conference, super amazing leadership team.
The ACU has been the single most uniting force behind the conservative movement.
It has been a gathering place for decades with presidents and lawmakers and pop culture figures.
If you're going to CPAC at National Harbor, volume right now in Oxon Hill on the Beltway at 210.
I understand there are 13,000 people there. It goes up a little bit each year.
Matt and the ACU bring together so many conservatives from around the country in one place.
I'm reminded of the Reagan Revolution, and we're trying to light the match of that revolution again in a positive way.
Quietly, mysteriously, the Republican Party has become the party of ideas.
The organization's proven itself over time from Ronald Reagan to Donald Trump.
I actually started quite a while ago in CPAC, came here, probably made my first real political speech, and I enjoyed it so much that I came back for a second one, then a third, then I said, what the hell, let's run for president, right?
Well, the president may have won an award for being one of the longest presidents to actually speak at a CPAC event. This speech went well over 2 hours.
It's wonderful to be back with so many great patriots, old friends, and brave, young conservatives. What a future you have.
Freedom, as Reagan told us, is not passed down in the bloodstream from one generation to another. Freedom, instead, you got to stand up, you got to fight for it, you got to defend it.
I am with you, I will fight for you, and I will win for you.
You need to come here with like-minded people. If you ain't trying to hear nothing about no socialism and all that foolishness, you need to come here with other like-minded people that's talking about capitalism, that's talking about you being free.
Our freedom, our people, our traditions, our families. But without freedom, none of it is possible. And that comes from the big guy, not the government.
All these young people here, everywhere you look, there are groups of millennials who tell us they are dedicated to growing the conservative movement, but admit, frankly, it's not cool on many college campuses to come out and say you're a conservative.
We're not going to have a conservative movement if we lose this generation.
Today I'm proud to announce that I will be very soon signing an executive order requiring colleges and universities to support free speech if they want federal research.
You've gotten coverage this year that I'm not sure I can recall ever you getting. So congratulations.
Amazing energy. It's the grassroots activist Super Bowl.
It's obviously the Super Bowl for conservatives.
Being conservative, being liberty-minded, being freedom-based, and CPAC is what makes America great. It's our first CPAC. We're just here taking it all in.
It's my first CPAC, having an awesome time. The reason I'm here is President Trump saving our country. I never would have come if it wasn't for President Trump.
You know what I like about this? Number one, I'm in love, and you're in love. We're all in love together. We've done something that nobody's ever done.
Well, President Trump loves CPAC, and CPAC loves President Trump. It's a mutual, strong relationship. It's the fact that the president knows that when he comes to CPAC, he's at home. He's with his people.
You know, I first went to CPAC during the Reagan years, where Reagan was a conservative president, but CPAC was much to the right of even where President Reagan was. And now it is right in the center. It is the Republican Party.
How's CPAC doing? Good? My man, stand up, please, will you? He's the one, he said you should run. Right? Matt said, it's like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I made a speech, and then they do some kind of a straw poll. Who made the best speech? They voted, by far the best speech was Trump. He calls me, he says, you should run for politics. I say, what do I know about politics? But you know what? We learned quickly, and our country has never done better than it's doing right now. So it's pretty good. But thank you, Matt.
You know, a couple of years ago, when a whole new team of people started leading the ACU, we thought that what happened during the 4 days of CPAC was so important that it actually had to occur every moment of every day on the calendar year. You know, we're kind of stuck in the swamp, and most people obviously live very far away from the swamp for good reasons.
People all over the world who are saying it's now our time to pursue this kind of freedom. We've got about 28 different countries now that are asking us to help them put on CPACs in their own countries.
Sounds awfully exotic to this Kansas kid. We're going to go to Australia. We're going to have the first CPAC.
They have a combination of hope and desperation. They want to help their fellow countrymen pursue freedom and attain it. And at the same time, they are so aware of the forces arrayed against them.
It was rather shocking to see that the legislature in Australia literally wanted to ban us from coming, and some of our speakers.
The Home Affairs Minister is encouraging a cavalcade of intolerance to continue at CPAC's Talkfest of Hate.
The first Australian Conservative Political Action Conference will get underway in Sydney today amid ongoing controversy.
CPAC was a debate within the Australian Parliament, the very fact that we would go there. So what that tells me is that the First Amendment that we have in our Constitution, which is a concept that we think is mostly accepted in these other free countries, actually isn't.
Nearly did more to drum up publicity for a Conservative conference on the weekend than anyone else, smearing any other Conservative who dared to turn up and discuss politics with other Conservatives.
We get to Australia. We were not arrested, but we ran into Antifa, hundreds of Antifa protesters protesting us in Sydney, Australia.
CPAC really must buck their ideas up. I'm told that only 200 protesters are expected today. You really must do better than that next year.
I went out to see it because I couldn't believe it. I thought Antifa was an American radicalized left-wing phenomenon. No, it's not. It's gone global.
What I'm really excited about, what the American Conservative Union is doing, is that you're going to create relationships across borders between like-minded people.
You know, we are part of an international movement. Whatever our countries, we're fighting against these big globalist forces.
But everybody lining up and telling us that if we dared to vote for Brexit, plagues of black locusts would descend on our land. But it didn't matter. We voted Brexit, and then a few months later in America, despite the fact that on that very morning, the Huffington Post said that Hillary, the blessed Hillary, had a 98% chance of winning. And yet what happened? The Donald swept to victory. Who'd have believed that?
Some people have asked me, why is ACU getting involved in these international programs? We're the American Conservative Union, after all. We're not the International Conservative Union. The forces arrayed against us are growing faster than the alternative. You've got the George Soros billionaires and others who are funding these efforts. They don't like the idea of individual liberty. If we do not take this opportunity, freedom could be lost.
The whole world is watching. What does America do in 2020? It's not an American question. It's a question they're asking in all the major communities around the globe. We went to our third CPAC in Tokyo, Japan.
All these Asian leaders are coming to me saying, we have to have the U.S. leadership because collectively, we Asians cannot fight this on our own. If the U.S. stands alone in this world against socialist nations, we will lose.
Just as President Trump says, fake media is running rampant, especially here in Japan. Everything they say is a lie, and you really can't trust the news. And Japanese people don't really understand what's going on or why it's happening.
We think about the fact that our rights are slowly being eroded by runaway courts and by an increasingly radicalized and socialist Democrat Party. That is a fact, but it's not uniquely American. These rights are being eroded all over the globe.
One of the most serious challenges our countries face is the specter of socialism. It's the wrecker of nations and destroyer of societies.
They are watching America because they fear that if America ever goes socialist, in essence, America stops being America. that means that the future for their country is very dark, because what left-wing American presidents do through their foreign policy, they push the most radical parts of their agenda all over the globe.
Socialism and communism are about one thing only: power for the ruling class.
I fear the future of Japan is quite dangerous. Japan has gotten a little too used to peace. They're not prepared for what could happen if they don't wake up. There's going to be trouble.
You're going to have conversations that will improve understanding between different nations that don't even speak the same language. And Japan and America and countries like Australia and the UK, these are the cornerstones of Western values and free markets.
We invited one of the Hong Kong protesters to address the audience, Andy Chan. When Andy left to go to the airport and when they went to board their plane, police arrested Andy because he was going to go to a CPAC in Tokyo.
As you all know, I was detained and arrested for riot when I departed to Japan. I'm now released without being charged and on bail. This is the second arrest I have encountered in a month.
They arrested him. That was shocking to me. I mean, first of all, what does CPAC matter that much? Why are these communists so afraid of letting someone simply give a speech?
ACU's founding charter, December 1964, is very clear what we stand for and why. It includes opposing socialism everywhere we find it.
But I'm just one of the thousands who were arrested. And we anticipate that many more Hong Kong citizens will also be arrested in the future. The situation in Hong Kong is dire.
Protesters in Hong Kong are begging the United States and specifically President Trump to help them in their fight for democracy. Tonight, some prominent American conservatives are meeting them in the semi-autonomous territory.
This Hong Kong movement for democracy is something every American needs to pray for, needs to try to support, because the Chinese regime in Beijing is probably more vulnerable than we realize.
You're looking at a face-off on one of the main roads in Hong Kong this Sunday afternoon. At one end, protesters with umbrellas ready because of the tear gas which will be shot by police.
With the suppression that we're seeing from the Chinese communists towards these peaceful protesters, there was a genuine concern that Matt, Dan, and several other of the ACU staff would end up in jail.
We would hear people say, "I will die for freedom," and they meant it.
We're here to support you. I know.
This morning, anti-government protests in Hong Kong reaching a new level of violence.
Tens of thousands marched to the US consulate pleading with President Trump to liberate Hong Kong. The American flag held high as the crowd sang America's national anthem.
Strong leadership coming from President Trump has put some of these regimes on the precipice, and I'm hoping that they fall the right way, which is freedom for their people.
Shannon, I've just never seen anything like it. What you have is literally thousands of mostly what I would call students or kids, teenagers. Some as young as 12 years old have been arrested.
Something I hear all over the globe when I travel. People in MAGA hats. People saying, please tell your president that for the first time we have an American leader who's got our back, who's on our side.
They're willing to give their lives for this struggle. It's a very emotional thing to see young people committed to democracy.
It's completely the opposite of what they hear when they turn on CNN International in their country about how much the globe is so embarrassed of Donald Trump.
The movement is now receiving support from members of the Conservative Political Action Conference here in the U.S. The conservative group joined student protesters, some as young as 12.
I had a young man come up to me. I looked very American clearly on the streets of Hong Kong, and he said, "Are you with CPAC?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm with CPAC." He goes, "Thank you for being here with me." It makes you almost want to tear up. These are really important times.
Our last night in Hong Kong, this great patriot who stands for freedom, Jimmy Lai, invited us to his house.
And when we showed up at Jimmy's house, there were members of the media who were essentially communist spies from media outlets owned by the communist regime in Beijing. They were there to harass us, to make us feel unsafe.
Filming us as we were walking in, videotaping us, recording who we are, why we were there.
We had this conversation around the table. What's at stake? What are the chances that this comes out well for the people of Hong Kong? What are the chances that a Tiananmen Square type episode occurs? Will there be this violent, bloody crackdown? And as we said our goodbyes, we headed back to our hotel. We all went to sleep, and not many hours later, we were woken up to the news.
The home of Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai was attacked early Thursday morning by a firebombing.
Two masked men lit glass bottles on fire in front of Lai's residence and lobbed them at the gate. The firebombs were seen as an act of intimidation against the pro-democracy tycoon.
They were sending us a very clear message. Don't meet with Jimmy. They were sending Jimmy a very clear message. Don't meet with the CPAC guys. And I think they were also sending us a message that it was time for us to leave. We are in Minneapolis, Minnesota, a really important state for a lot of reasons.
It is great to have the ACU here in Minnesota, home to the only congressional delegation that makes Nancy Pelosi look moderate.
Today's September 11th, the 18th anniversary of September 11th, 2001.
Just in the backyard of where we stand today is a congresswoman who does not like America, who stands for Islamic radicalization. She's the one who said some people did something.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something.
So we went up there on 9/11. We held an event called Some People Did Something.
They've convoluted the whole idea of September 11th and yet another shaming for what they see as racism. And I think it's politically motivated, and I think we have to call it out and make it stop.
We invited Dr. Zuhdi Jasser to be with us today because 18 years ago, he was the man who stood on the grounds of 9/11 and said, it's not appropriate to build a mosque on these grounds. He's Muslim himself, but he understood what building a mosque on bombed territory would mean.
My family was kicked out of Syria and got political asylum here. Most Muslim majority countries don't have even close to the freedoms that we have here.
Some people did something. Well, people like Dr. Zuhdi Jasser, they did something. They helped rebuild America. They helped promote American values.
The one thing I kept hearing from the people of Minnesota was, why don't more people come here and talk to us? Nobody's showing up in Minnesota, but we're going to show up. It's right for the pickings for conservatives.
In Minnesota, the biggest thing we can do is get the message to the people. That's why I'm here today speaking in Minnesota. When I came out of my addiction, I'm going, okay, what's a liberal, what's a conservative? I'm going, gee, every one of my values fall right here in the conservative aisle. I've learned so much about this deep state swamp. They didn't have our president's back. We have the highest consumer confidence in history. These attacks, everything he's done and promised that we talked about, has already happened or is going to happen. I can't believe anyone in our country would not want to keep going down that path.
If Americans sit back and let a bunch of elites in Washington, D.C. or in their state capitals determine how they're going to live their lives, this whole American experiment is over.
You get this bubble that goes on there where they think that only the people who are inside that bubble are the best and brightest, and only those people know how to tell other people how to live their lives. I think that's the most dangerous thing about Washington, D.C., New York, the Acela corridor.
Donald Trump couldn't find Ukraine on a map if you had the letter U and a picture of an actual physical crane next to it. The credulous boomer Rube demo that backs Donald Trump that wants to think that Donald Trump's a smart one and y'all elitists are dumb.
You could put half of Trump's supporters into what I call the basket of deplorables.
You elitists with your geography and your maps and your spelling.
Many who support the president administration are either racist, steeped in religious beliefs, ignorant, or as my mother used to say, just plain dumb.
All those lines on the map.
Only them elitists know where Ukraine is.
Do you think that people who support President Trump and his immigration policies are racist?
Anyone who supports this is supporting racism.
The racist, sexist, homophobic.
My math and you're reading.
Yeah, you're reading your geography, knowing other countries, sipping your latte.
Xenophobic, Islamophobic, you name it.
They really do look down their noses at least half of America. It's no wonder their ratings are in the tank.
You know what you can go do? I can't say that.
We are in Reno, Nevada for the first annual CPAC West.
Thousands gathered at Corley Ranch to express their concerns about the current political climate.
We believe so strongly in ensuring that America stays strong, stays free, and doesn't turn into a socialist country.
It's nice to see like-minded people, because sometimes I feel like we're a little isolated.
Yeah. We're outnumbered.
Yes.
That's what you would think if you're watching the mainstream, or what people call the mainstream media.
The crowd completely understands the Trump phenomenon. Why? Because he's taken on the left and he's taken on the media lead. And he is willing to keep fighting for the American people.
You were there yesterday.
Yeah.
Just came from Minnesota, and today we're kind of planting a flag in Nevada to say that this is conservative country.
It's very different from the East Coast elites that we find so often. It's the rugged individualist. It's this John Wayne kind of attitude to how you should live your life.
We have to take our state back. And we have farming, we got ag, we got cattle, we got everything, and we got to take them back. And we just can't let the liberals, the socialists, try to run this state.
We joined with ACU to create the first ever CPAC West right here in Reno, Nevada, a swing county and a swing state. Not only is it important to Trump's re-elect, it's important that Western libertarian values of individualism retain a strong foundation in our country and our politics.
Bernie Sanders was in Denver the other day and said the same thing as Barack Obama, appealing to his crowd, his supporters. Help me transform America.
We will not only win this election, we will transform this country.
The envy of the free world, the greatest country on God's green earth, they want to turn it on its head and change it forever. That's what's at stake.
I'm a new conservative. I came to CPAC to meet other like-minded people who are completely supportive of the Constitution and Bill of Rights.
I had one wonderful woman come up to me here at CPAC West and literally said, I'm inspired. I want to take action. I want to do more. And that's what we need. For too long, the Democrats have been the ones to organize effectively. It's our turn now. It's our turn for conservatives to take that banner, to win in 2020.
Korea CPAC kicks off in Seoul, South Korea, and it's hosted by the American Conservative Union.
Just make the statement, CPAC South Korea, and think about it for a little bit.
South Korea boasts the fourth largest economy in Asia, hence the nickname, the Korean Miracle. But South Korean President Moon Jae-in is on track to changing that. Moon, often accused of imposing Marxism on Korea, shows alarming simpatico for the communist policies of North Korea.
The threat of communism on the peninsula is growing, and this whole socialism threat that we have here in our country is really a problem in so many corners of the globe. CPAC, South Korea. I had to keep pinching myself. Are we really going to go right in the middle of all that and have a CPAC? And would anybody show up?
Korea CPAC concluded to a packed ballroom in Seoul's Grand Hyatt Hotel. Though 500 were expected for the debut event, more than 1,000 Koreans showed up, spilling into overflow space at the hotel.
Try to move towards socialism.
I'm here able to learn about the people in South Korea
and the trials and tribulations that they have that are not so different in some sense from some of the things that we're seeing in the United States.
In South Korea or in free countries around the globe, political disagreements should never be criminalized.
What America has been facing for the last couple of years is what Korea is now facing for itself. It's a generational change. It is an inflection point of what kind of a life do you want to live. You don't make your stand now, it may never come again.
People in Georgia are just as sick of the swamp as many of us in Washington who are fighting it. We've got to take our country back.
Georgia is mainly Republican, conservative, Christian, family value people. Democrats coming in from other states who don't live here with big money backers coming into our districts trying to edge us out.
When you think of Georgia, you think of it being a solidly red state. The fact is, our research shows that there's a real change happening in the state.
Congressman Doug Collins is doing a great job. He calls it like it is. He told us about all the shenanigans going on with the rules and the laws in Washington that the Democrats don't want to follow, and it's not right.
Georgia is now the 8th largest populous state in the country. And the fake news and liberal media keep saying we're a toss-up state.
Let me put it in Trump's terms. He's going to win bigly in Georgia this time.
The American Conservative Union, as long as I've been in Washington, has been the most important organization of the right in America. And in many ways, and this is important, in the world. On top of that, there are these regional meetings that it holds, such as this one here in Atlanta. I mean, this is incredible. And then all these international meetings, Tokyo, Seoul, Brazil, across the globe, they're everywhere.
Of course, the greatest thing about going to Brazil is just the spirit of the people. I mean, they want to sing, dance, chant, hug.
Our biggest message from America is the following. Number one, what you're doing in Brazil, you're giving us hope. Hopefully what we're doing
CPAC's chief organizer, Matt Schlapp, handed the former president a prime speaking slot, closing out the conference Sunday.
I like the fact that he wants to stay engaged. Now, you can say that he lost the election, but his supporters, 73 million.
Well, he did lose the election.
You can say that he lost the election, and
He did lose the election.
Yeah, but I'm
responsible for the deadly insurrection.
He gave a speech, and then there was a violent insurrection.
That he was responsible in part for what happened.
If
Why can't he deal with that reality?
Oh, I deal with reality every day, and I even watch CNN, and I can be just fine with that. But if you believe somebody used inappropriate words to spur violence, and you can't come up with the words, then you're making stuff up. And you should stop it.
I'm not doing it. Liz Cheney did it. Mitch McConnell did it.
Look,
Kevin McCarthy did it. They did it. They said it.
If you want to highlight a handful of Republicans who voted for impeachment, for conviction, it's certainly right. This is the First Amendment. You can pursue anything you want. You can't make up. You can't say there was some intent in someone's brain that they never said in words and that resulted in some kind of violence. Give me the words, and then I have to deal with the fact that maybe somebody I love did something that I didn't agree with. But when you make it up, give me one word they said. One word. One single word.
Well, he's also not that protected here, I guess. There's no snipers or anything.
They continue to say that the election was stolen. When that just isn't true.
Were there any illegal ballots cast in that election?
I suppose there might have been.
So how many?
But Bill Barr
So how
said,
many?
his own attorney general said not enough to overturn the results of the election.
Bill Barr, believe it or not, had no
court decision after court decision. He put 3 justices on the Supreme Court. They didn't agree with him.
You just told me that that's actually not right. You just told me that there was illegal voting in the last election. You don't know how many. Did you sit down with the team in Nevada? Let me finish. Did you sit down with the team in Nevada or Georgia, these states, and ever go through the binders of information that good patriotic Americans came up with?
But
did you ever talk
to overturn the results of the election?
How could you know that when you don't know the number? Are you that good at math?
7 million votes.
I love how you're
306 electoral votes. How is it that there's just no way that that's
well? What I'd like you to do is to read Time Magazine and to read the New York Times and to read the Washington Post, where they're saying it's less than 100,000 votes that separated the two men electorally. And you just said that conservatives spurred violence, but you can't use any words. You admit that there's illegal voting. You said that there's illegal voting. You have no idea how much, but you are certain what the impact was.
Isn't this the big lie conference?
That's what the Nazis used to say. Jim, you're better than that. You're better than that.
You're comparing. You're
comparing me to a Nazi.
No, I'm not. I'm
Yes,
saying
you
this
are.
is the big lie conference.
I love you, man.
Do you be responsible?
Yeah, I'm ready like this. Text Joe? Yeah, I'm ready.
Here, clearly that wasn't the case, and it was nowhere near where we were originally stationed outside where the majority of the people were. He just moments ago on this street here, which is Convention Parkway, rode by in the motorcade, which is why you saw the double screen of us sprinting down the street. We didn't have our microphone. We just ran out here as fast as we could, and we didn't get it. But the motorcade did come in a few minutes ago and turned on the street down there to go into the building. I think that that's probably the way that they'll come back out, since they went there with the vehicle. So it's very possible we could get him leaving on this side of the street, but I imagine people are going to figure that out and come down here and stand on the side. But that's what we were doing. We came out here to try to get a shot of Trump coming in on the motorcade, and we weren't able to do it, but we had to run completely around the building to try to get that shot for you guys. So that's what we were trying to do. And maybe we'll be able to get it on the way out. We'll see what happens, but that's what's going on out here. There's so many people out here all around the building now. You can see the law enforcement on bikes trying to keep everything civil and safe, but that's what's going on out here. So he should be speaking momentarily, but you can see, like, even on that street corner, that's nowhere we were nowhere near that street corner an hour ago. So there's thousands of people out here on the street all over in Orlando, outside of the Hyatt Regency for CPAC, where Trump will speak in the next 15 minutes, I'm assuming. As soon as he gets inside, he's going to speak, so we'll clearly throw it back into Philip and Adrian, who are standing by whenever we're ready. Whenever Joe, our CEO, says we can go back inside, we'll do that. But there's a large crowd of people out here. There's a lot going on. We thank you guys for tuning in and sticking with us. Again, we apologize. We got information that he was already here and that the motorcade had come a different direction. So we had no reason to not believe it, but clearly that was not true. So lots of people outside to support the president. It's incredible. You got, I believe these are Vietnamese guys for Trump. Incredible. Love to see it. Love it.
kneel because I didn't have a
Who ain't gonna buy it? Some shirt.
One thing we need to work
Wallace.
on.